emergency management to develop such a system to be activated during the event of a disaster. It allows the division to operate the system in conjunction with any existing system. While the bill loosely prescribes certain things such as the content of notifications and the delivery mechanism, it would leave much discretion up to the Division of Emergency Management. Many other states have successfully implemented similar systems, and I believe Texas would benefit from doing so as well. He is currently working on a substitute to address a few issues with the bill, and will provide that to the committee as soon as possible. And, some witnesses that might be able to answer questions if there are.
This time the chair calls Travis Scott. Scott, your name, any organization you might represent, your testimony on behalf, and your position.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Travis Scott, and I'm here on behalf of Everbridge, the global leader in critical communications and our fourth bill. So, Texas, and there's no doubt that Texas is a very, what's called a disaster-rich state. And as it stands right now, there is no unified communication strategy for the state as a whole. There's currently 254 counties throughout the entire state, and each and every one of them has their own unique communications platform. Don't get me wrong, a lot of them do utilize Everbridge for their critical communications. Those counties include everything from Harris County, City of Houston, Hidalgo County, Nueces County, Capcog, this general region right here, Hotcog, and many others. But the fact of the matter is that there are also many other counties who utilize other systems that don't communicate with each other, and there are also several other counties that have no ability to have a communication system for reasons usually pending from the lack of ability to fund the system as a whole. So as a result, communications during major disasters are usually fragmented and siloed, and there's no unified or single communication place or source for Texans to go to receive accurate and trusted information during a major event. So this is a major problem and a major concern for people who are looking to receive information during major disasters. This bill right here will create a disaster alert system that will create a unified communication strategy across the state of Texas and create an environment that will provide that single source of information that can be accurate and trusted to all Texans during that major event. This will create an environment that allows agencies to share information during these major events and allow for a coordinated response during these major disasters. Now, rest assured that Texas is not the only state that suffers these same communication hurdles or as a result of them. There are many other states that are doing this, and they have had these same hurdles when it comes to communications. These states include Florida, the state of New York, Connecticut, Vermont, and many others. And these other states have taken the initiative to provide this unified communication strategy. And as a result, there is a much better coordinated response during these disasters. So, in conclusion, we at Everbridge are in favor of this bill, and at this point, we'd be happy to take any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Scott? Appreciate you, Mr. Scott.
Thank you very much.
Chair now calls, I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, Hyla Sokovitz.
Highway Solovich, but I don't know. I'm Jennifer McPhail, but I don't see Highway here. We work together.
Okay. Going once, going twice. Go ahead.
All right. Well, I'm seeing no questions on behalf of Representative Roman. I close.
Thank you. At this time, we'll leave House Bill 34 pending if there's no objection. At this time, the chair leaves out House Bill 3858. Passes Representative Johnson to explain the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. Give you a scenario. I would like any of you would like to be arrested without being told why you're being arrested, without being told a violation for which you're being arrested for. Currently, when a police officer resigns, retires, or is terminated from the force, their employer is required to fill out an F5 report that includes an officer's discharge as in the circumstance by which the officer was of the officer's departure. But the statute does not require the form to include a violation that may have led to the officer's dismissal. My bill requires C-Code to alter F5 reports to include any violation that an officer may have committed which led to their dismissal. Moreover, the only way an agency alter an F5 report is for the officer to file a petition for correction within 30 days of receiving the report. My bill will allow the chief to submit an amendment report if they uncovered any new exonerating evidence after the 30-day petition. My bill does not do away with the appeal process, does not hamper TCO's authority to repeal a license or ability for an administrative law judge to rule on a case. All my bill simply does is help officers who deserve an honorable discharge to get that discharge. Simply, that's what my bill does. It simply says, my bill is just simply a transparency bill. It just simply says if somebody's discharged, tell them why they're being discharged and point out the violation by which that they may have committed in order that led to their dismissal. And I know that there are a few witnesses, and if there are any questions, I reserve my right to close, Mr. Chair.
Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of concerns about this. I think my major concerns, well, first and foremost, we always want to trust law enforcement. I support law enforcement. My concern is, would a police officer that's friends with a guy that gets an administrative admonishment or is removed from that position and becomes a sheriff, a chief constable, be able to change this administrative F5? Could they change it 10 years from now when there was no real evidence that it should have been changed?
Well,
So
there has to be exonerating evidence submitted in order to make any particular changes. As you just pointed out, if an officer decides to, or a chief decides to do something that may be against policy or take a chance and reinstate someone who was discharged properly, and if that person decides to take that upon themselves and put their own job in jeopardy, or even the department, then that person probably needs to be dealt with severe punishment. But as you said, we want to trust the fact that our police officers do the department, which is right. But again, I will say there has to be exonerating evidence to demonstrate a reinstatement.
who makes the determination of exonerating evidence? Is it the police chief or sheriff, constable, or is it TCO?
It could be any of those, in particular a judge or an attorney that may want to bring forth that exonerating evidence. And it does not mean that they have to be reinstated. It just simply says, here's what my evidence clearly states that probably wasn't there before. And if you would look at it, and if you have an opportunity to look at it, I'd like to be, to make sure that this was a part of my case. Again, it doesn't require any police officer or police chief to reinstate. Just simply gives you an opportunity. But again, I want to be clear. This bill does say, want transparency. What was the violation that led to the dismissal? Is the only thing that
I'm guessing there's resource witnesses. I'm looking on here, there's 4 to testify, so I'll ask you a couple of questions.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, there's no more questions for
I have a
Representative.
question.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. So right now, if a police officer is discharged, their discharge papers don't show, is that right? Like why they were
It
discharged?
says the circumstance which doesn't give the violation. It doesn't always happen. My
So-
bill is required.
So if they went on to like another department, let's say 3 hours away, it would just say they were discharged, but this would then show like why they were discharged, is that right?
It would give the violation that was committed.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. This time the chair calls Captain Swoop.
Pass this out to the committee.
Ms. Willie, your name, the organization that you may be testifying on or on behalf of, and your position.
Morning, Chair and Council. My name is Kathy Swilly. I'm a former Houston police officer and poster child as to why this bill should be passed. To allow law enforcement agencies not to attach the policy violation and the circumstances in which an officer was terminated allows for law enforcement, it allows for law enforcement to fabricate F5s as they did in my case. And if you look at the information, evidence that I just passed out, that is exactly what they did. I had to file a civil suit to be able to get the information to clear my name. Actually, I wasn't even at work when I was terminated. The evidence, when I asked for my information, they said they didn't have my IED file. I had to, again, file a lawsuit to get that IED file. During the deposition and the hearings, the transcripts, the official transcript clearly shows the HPD legal attorneys admit that they wrongfully terminated me. Thus, omitting that clearly states that my termination letter was completely fabricated, my F5 was fabricated and sent to T-Close to mislead T-Close to believe that they had a legitimate business reason to terminate me. To get that evidence, I was able to get that evidence only because I filed a civil suit, which cost me over $100,000 to get the evidence that you're looking at. And I have additional evidence if you would like to see it, a complete file of it. Once I requested my IED files, the city went to the judge and asked for to put me and those files under a protective order. I was under a protective order for over 2 years to keep that evidence silenced. By the time that evidence got out, my rights to file a complaint for falsifying a government document, which is what an F5 is, had expired. It is my experience that until this committee and T-Close demand that the proper paperwork, the policy violations, and the circumstances in which an officer received a dishonorable discharge is attached to their file, law enforcement will continue. I'm not saying all law enforcement, but my agency, but there are other officers, they will continually fabricate and file false F5s with the state of Texas, which is an official document. Now, my F5, if you look at my F5, it should be B, I believe. It clearly shows that my F5 wasn't even signed. You want to know why they didn't bother to sign it? Because they know that if I had been able to file a complaint for falsifying a government document, who would be held accountable? That's why they didn't sign it. They knew it was false. The other thing, how can you tell me that an official document filed with the state of Texas is official if it's not even signed? But yet and still, not one chief or HPD officials have agreed to correct my F5. I have not been able to get a job in law enforcement for 10 years. Even when I went to SA, I couldn't get a job as a security officer. I have an untruthfulness on my police record. After 23 years, clean police record, and I'm out of a job. At least if I could have been able to get a job anywhere, I could have had 10 years in Social Security by now, okay? So the bottom line is, when you don't have rules in place to control law enforcement, it's like any other agency. People will find loopholes to abuse the system, and that is exactly what has happened here. This is a grievous act of disrespect to our democracy to just flat out lie on a government document.
Ms. Woody, can I ask you a question real quick? I mean to interrupt, I lose my train of thought. Is there, and I'm ignorant of how filling out forms in this situation works, but are you telling me that there is no instruction or administrative instruction that tells somebody fill the form out completely?
Oh yeah, they have that.
Okay, so let's back up there. So there already is, you see what I'm saying is, absent other parts of the bill, do we need a part of the bill that says, hey, do what we already told you to do? mean, I think what you're trying to say is there's information that's omitted from the report, correct?
Right.
And so, if the fact that the information is omitted or incorrect, let's put those two things in separate boxes,
Okay.
okay? Is, I would imagine, and you just confirmed it, that if somebody were to hand me this, I'd say, hey, it's not filled out completely, it's not signed. In other words, probably an administrative rule that says, hey, you've gotta check off these boxes and you've gotta sign it, correct?
Yes.
Okay, in this case, it wasn't done.
It wasn't done.
Okay. So there exists a rule already that says, hey, whether it's filled out truthfully or not, that's an argument for another day. But whether it's filled out completely, there's already a process in place to vet that, correct?
Well, it should, yes, but let me tell you what happened there. 2 reasons. When they send the F5s to my house, they actually signed it. When I went to Austin to get an official copy of my F5, they had even bothered to sign it. So they led me to believe that it was correct.
Yeah, but that's a process, that they're going outside of a rule, meaning
Yes.
we don't need a rule to tell somebody to tell the truth, correct?
In this case, I guess, I believe so, because Congress, yeah,
I guess my point is.
this bill would do that.
Because you made a point of saying the form needs to be signed, it wasn't signed, correct?
It wasn't signed.
And so again, going back to my question, is there's probably, not probably, I'm pretty sure there's an administrative rule that says it's gotta be filled out, including signing,
Yes,
right? So,
and it comes from T-close.
right, so I'm trying to parse out that part of the bill that would create a duty that's not otherwise already imposed, meaning it seems like they're just not following the rule. No.
It
Right,
was,
I mean, maybe I'm missing
according
something.
to, see, first of all, F5s were amended in 2006. Prior to F5s being amended in 2006, the occupational code 7201.452B2 stated that a law enforcement agency must attach the policy violations that the officer and the circumstance in which the officer was terminated. Once that bill, F5s were amended back in 2016, that went with, they did what they wanted to do, because they didn't have to show proof. They just did an F5, and who was gonna question it?
But then you have what's called I think it's louder mill.
You have two, you have a lot of mill here,
Okay.
which, a lot of mill hearings, you don't get all the facts, okay? You don't get all the facts, and that is one of the reasons why I, filed a civil suit to get my entire
At the
documents.
louder mill here, are you allowed, to remember the union? Allowed union?
I had a union attorney, yes. In fact, in my civil suit, I had 10 attorneys. They all decided to, something about law enforcement, a lot of times people want to help law enforcement, okay, and I'm just a victim. But, the bottom line is, if, the other problem I had, T-Close should have known that this was not official document if it wasn't signed. They should have kicked it back to law enforcement. They should kick that back to the law enforcement agency and say, hey, look, this is not an official document, it's not even signed. Really, it's null and void. That is exactly what it is.
Now, currently, let's say, again, they should have kicked it back because it wasn't correctly filled out, and they didn't.
Wasn't signed.
Right, wasn't signed, which means it wasn't.
And the paperwork, should have been attached to it, wasn't attached to it.
Are there any penalties internally that would attach to not doing your job correctly, meaning filling out, not you, but the person in charge of filling it out? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, but I don't know. I evidently, it wasn't, because I've talked to every chief, and, nothing has become of it, so.
Are there any other questions from Ms. Wood? None? Thank you, Ms. Wood, I appreciate it.
May I add this?
Yes, ma'am.
I have support, and anybody else looked at the evidence that I presented you guys. I have support from Houston DA Kim Ogg, letters of support from Ray Hunt with the Houston Police Union, Eric Fagan, and Eric Carr from the Afro-American Association. This bill, House Bill 58, would benefit officers all across Texas to assure what happened to me don't happen to another officer. it also preserves the integrity of law enforcement and TCOs. Thank you.
At this time, Chair calls up Mr. Jeff Reese.
Good morning. Hi, my name is Jeff Reese. I'm president of the Houston. I'm sorry, I got ahead of myself.
No, you're fine. If you do check all the boxes, I won't interrupt you.
Okay. Hi, I'm currently the president of the Houston Peace and Justice Center, but I'm also here for the Greater Coalition for Justice. But I'm also here for Kathy Swilley. I was a sergeant with the Harris County Sheriff's Department for 25 years and 7 months.
Position on the bill, sir.
I am for the bill. There's a lot more to it. I understand that there's a lot of confusion. A lot of people that support law enforcement might not be for the bill, but it's the best thing we've got. And unfortunately, they say if you can't be a shining example, you can be a horrible warning, and I'm here as a horrible warning, I'm afraid. I turned in my retirement papers, and a month after I did that, an investigation was opened on me. And so the honorable discharge I got was changed to a general discharge. How they did this, I don't know. But I know in the process of trying to clear my name, it was rather pointless. The amount of money it would take to do the hearing that TCOL requires just wasn't worth it. I called TCOL and I said, hey, something happened. What's the deal? I had an honorable discharge and I had a dishonorable discharge. And they claimed that I had resigned for being under investigation, but they opened an investigation on me a month after I had filed my paperwork to retire. So I don't know if Minority Report or some science fiction plays into this, I don't know. But all I know is I wound up with a general discharge. So when I asked TCOL, I said, well, what does this mean for me? She goes, well, it'll make it difficult if you want another job as a police officer. I said, well, that's okay. I think I got enough. I don't know that I want to go back, but there's more behind the scenes. And I think the process and the appeals is what I think is very important here. It's very onerous and very expensive on the part of a police officer to defend themselves. All the department has to do is file paperwork, and then it's automatically accepted by TCOL. When I called TCOL, they said their job, and it's on the form, their job is not to investigate, and so that's okay. But what happens? Now I'm stuck, and nothing's going to change. Even if the bill is passed just the way it is, it's not going to be retroactive. You know, in other words, I'm grandfathered into the old system, and that's okay. For any questions that you might have for me personally, and I can only speak for myself, but.
Are there any questions for Mr. Reese? There being none, thank you, sir. I appreciate it. The chair now calls Mr. Demetrius Wright. Yeah, there it is.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Demetrius Wright. I'm for this bill. I currently, too, was a former Houston police officer. Just like Kathy Swilley, you spoke a moment ago, the same thing that happened to her happened to me. I just want to say that by not a law enforcement, I just want to say a law enforcement agency not being responsible and not being held to submit a documentation showing the circumstances on why it hurts an officer's chances of prevailing when he appeals his separation license. In my case, I was also given a dishonorable discharge. In my appeal hearing for my dishonorable discharge, I was able to prevail on the untruthfulness by the administrative law judge, but I was not able to prevail on the insubordination only because I was not allowed to enter my evidence. This is not an isolated incident. It happens to, I know of other officers that this has happened to. A law enforcement agency should be required to send this documentation when they submit a dishonorable discharge to an officer. Even a general discharge. Because when that officer goes to appeal it, it lessens his chances of prevailing against the charges against him. So if the charges are true, why shouldn't the law enforcement agency, why shouldn't they have a problem sending the documentation showing why they were being issued a dishonorable charge? Other than that, that's all I have to say.
Any questions of Mr. Wright?
Thank you.
At this time, the chair calls Mr. Eric Carr.
Good morning. My name is Eric Carr. I'm the president of the African American Police Officers League, which is the minority labor union. I'm also a member of the Houston Police Officers Union, and I'm here in support of the bill. As a labor union president, of course, when a officer have an issue, we are one of the first to help that officer as a union representative for that officer. First, I want to also acknowledge Representative Jarvis Johnson for his support. Also, Phil King, who initially brought the bill forward within the legislation session, because the only thing we're asking for is accountability, transparency, integrity, which are things that we should be examples of as far as law enforcement. With that being said, in support at any time the head of law enforcement or a chief or designee puts a termination for F5 for dishonorable. Only thing we're asking if there's evidence, not his opinion, not because that's his buddy, because we want to hold officers accountable if they're doing something wrong. But if there's evidence that the officer was wrongly terminated or the F5 was wrongly, the license title was incorrect, and there's evidence of that, we asking that the head of the law enforcement agency take that in consideration and consider changing it from a dishonorable to honorable or a dishonorable to a general if there's evidence to support that. Just like if you're being accused of anything, you would like to see the evidence of why you're being accused. What's the information to prove you're being accused? And that's our reaction. You have someone that's, incarcerated, and there's DNA evidence or any evidence to show that they may have been a wrongfully conviction, then they could get a retrial. So, as the labor union president, I spoke with Ray and others, we're just asking to give that head of law enforcement an opportunity to change it if there's new evidence, and just ask that he reconsider that evidence to possibly amend the report. So,
Are there any questions of Mr. Carr?
thank you.
Great. This time, the chair calls up C.J. Grisham.
C.J. Grisham speaking for myself in favor of this bill. I want to kind of repeat a phrase I hear a lot, which is if you're not doing anything wrong, you should have nothing to hide. So I don't see why, if a law enforcement officer is being terminated, that department should have no problem saying exactly why they did it. Good, bad, or ugly. It helps the department, it helps the troops, or excuse me, the officers, and it helps the community to also understand that. So that's it.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Grisham? No, thank you. There being normal business testify on for against House Bill 3858, the chair now calls Representative Johnson to close.
Before you do that, are there any administrators, police chiefs, T-Cole, anyone like that here?
Resource with it.
I'm signed up.
Ken, we got you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members, my name is Kim Biggers, I'm Executive Director of the Commission on Law Enforcement, and I'm here as a resource. This is a very complicated process, the whole F5 process, and there are some comments made that I can hope add some clarification to if you have questions and things that have come up, that I'd be happy to answer questions to clarify. Thank you.
Representative General.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to understand this because I don't, Representative Lane was a police officer. I kind of understand F5s. First, I think are police departments required to give an F5 to an officer who is terminated, retired? Do they currently give an F5 or the reason to the officer themselves?
The way the system works currently is any officer that separates from an agency, there must be an F5 on that separation that is sent to that person, to us, within 7 days. That F5 does have the designations honorable, general, dishonorable. If there's a designation that the officer does not agree with, the officer can file with us, through us, an appeal that goes to SOA, State Office of Administrative Hearings. At that hearing, the department, the agency, is the one that has the burden of proof to show that why that designation was there. I'd like to say that back in 2008, around 2008, 2009, we used to have, as a previous witness testified, there were extra materials sent in with these. When we were sunsetted back in 09, around 09, in the 09 session, the law was changed that everything we have has to come in electronically. The decision was made at that time. I wasn't the executive director at the time, but I think I understand the decision. The decision was made at that time that the F5 is intended to be an indicator. It's not supposed to be a hiring determinant. And I have classes with chiefs all the time and sheriffs and tell them, don't look at a designation and determine that's whether you want to hire somebody or not, because you don't know the case there. You need to look at the situation and look at the background. At that time, the requirement to submit additional items was removed. And because we were ordered that everything had to come in electronically, and at that time it had been mailed in, all that stuff had been mailed in. So that was the thought process there. As far as I'd like to address the signed copy real quick that you had, Mr. Chairman. You're correct about the Loudermill. An officer that's going to leave, I've just been to a Loudermill hearing, and it is incumbent upon me to let that officer know exactly what the violation is, what the policy is, and every reason that is for them being terminated.
That's a hearing.
It's a hearing.
So, the hearing's adversarial, right?
At that point, yes, sir. Could be an attorney,
So,
yes, sir.
if there's presumably at that point, if you've got counsel has the ability to elicit in an adversarial process the whys and the wherefore. You just talked about the duty you have, but that duty is only prompted by the question, right? So in other words, you have a minimal duty, I would say, to lay out a certain amount of information, facts, or positions on where you're at, correct? And then because it's adversarial, at some point, somebody has to coax it out of you, right? Or not necessarily you, but a witness or witnesses.
Potentially, yes, sir. The thing that I believe that this bill calls for to be attached to the F5 is the exact same information that comes out. It's the policy that was violated and a description of the violation. And that's a step that, as chief administrator, I had to go through on a case that I had recently. The reason that when the previous witness came to us and asked for a copy, it was not signed, is because it is submitted electronically. Electronic copies do not have signatures. What we have in our system will not be a signed copy. What we require of that agency is there be a signed copy on file in that officer's file, and we audit that agency to make sure that information is there.
Is the electronic submission, does that serve as an affirmation that, hey, I'm averring that the information that I'm submitting electronically is, to the best of my knowledge, correct?
I don't know the exact wording on the F5 part of it. When the chief administrator goes through TCLEDS, our database system and our electronic system, and submits that F5, I'm not familiar with the exact wording, I can get that for you, whether it has a statement, you're swearing that this is true.
Because I can't tell from what I have in front of me, and if you can answer that question to me and the rest of the committee, in other words, what filling out and averring, and I'm using the word averring, because I don't know if that's the process here, but what duty or what obligation is triggered by the person filling out the F5 meeting? And I understand what you're saying is that what the bill would do is basically have the agency, the officer, whatever, a group of officers that are making the decision, lay all their cards out on the table in the first, what I would call the charging document, right?
Yes, sir.
And then you would basically do it again in an adversarial process during the hearing, correct?
That, the true adversarial process comes up in, if they contest it, or in the solo hearing, yes, sir.
Okay, so in between that, is there a series of these changes between at this point, the separated and or suspended officer and the agency in terms of give me X, Y, and Z for my file?
I don't know if there's a legal step that there is in place
Well,
for
let's
that.
call it administrative. In other words, does the union lawyer or the representative of the separated and or suspended officer have the ability to engage in, hey, I want to see my employee file?
I would think they would, yes, sir. I don't know anything, I don't have the exact answer to that. Because I know when, on our case that we just went through, and the information was requested, and we provided it.
Now, in this Loudermill hearing, are the witnesses put under oath?
No, sir.
At what point is anybody averring to whatever they're saying or signing?
In the solo hearing, I would imagine.
Yes, at that point, they're up there.
Yes, sir.
So then, if you give me a copy of, let's say this is an employee file, I got it by then. I'm going through it and I see the F5, and the F5 is, other than the boxes, and there's a little area, right, about this big to write stuff in. Well, I'm not gonna get a lot of information there, right?
Correct.
Even if I filled out, wrote real small, it's just not gonna be a lot of it. There's not room. But at that point, in an adversarial process, if you have a representative, they should be able to either discern why the file is so thin, or figure out it's thick, but that thickness is somewhere else, it's missing. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir, I understand.
And that has to do with how well the adversarial process is working, right? Is there anything about this bill that would fix that part of it?
No, sir. If this bill passes, we can work with this bill, it won't be a problem. We'll have to reprogram the TPLED system. You know, the fiscal note would be there, because we're gonna have it reprogrammed and put in text boxes for copy and paste, which we can do. That's not.
I've only been here for 5 minutes, but I think, this is just me talking out loud, is if, from the very beginning, if everyone has to aver, if you start averring to the first document, it solves all the problems, because at that point, whether it's signed or not becomes irrelevant. You know, the submissions and all that, it's, hey, at the time, you made basically you signed an affidavit saying X, Y, and Z were true. You know, you can lie by omission and commission. In this case, if you leave stuff out, at that point, hey, you knew this at the time, but you didn't put it on there. And so maybe there's a reason for it, because let's say the officer's under some sort of investigation. They don't want to tip them off that, hey, we're gonna fire you because you didn't put your paper clips right on your desk. But they really have them for something else, they just don't want to tip them off, correct? I mean, that's a possibility.
That is a possibility.
All right. But at that time, there'd be a very good reason for having an omission or a commission.
I can get you one. Yes, sir.
So, I'll go back to this and I'll close it here, is I hate laws that tell us to follow the laws that we already have, right?
Yes, sir.
It's stupid. But if you change it so that law is now different, that it makes people follow it because now there's a hook to it, does that make sense? Then now we're cooking with gas. But if we're telling people, do what we already told you to do, and see, and we do that a lot around here, I'm not saying we don't, but it just upsets me.
I assure you, Mr. Chairman, nothing in this is everything in here is something we can accomplish very easily, it's just gonna be a matter of.
I like your can-do attitude.
We'll make it happen. With the legislature.
All right, any other, questions, Mr. Ricky?
Who currently, so there's additional documents in F5, who currently holds those? Who keeps those?
Five.
Any additional documents that
So
support?
the actual agency in that officer's file.
So you're not currently the repository for anything other than the F5 in this instance?
That's correct.
So what I'm hearing is the TQuiz stuff, is that a system that would have, you would have to start holding these other documents now? And from the conversation that just happened, law enforcement agencies keep all of their records on their people, and then in an investigation, you guys all get those documents for the investigation. Is that,
Yes, sir. Or an audit, yes, sir.
what's the cost of increasing TQuiz stuff? Was it in the fiscal note? I think
It's
I
in the
saw it.
fiscal note, yes, sir. We have a fiscal note that's attached and,
I believe it was a couple hundred-ish.
about 167,000, something like that.
I understand this, so right now, if someone gets an F5 and they're leaving a department, regardless of the situation, does the officer get a copy of the F5?
By law, yes, sir.
By law, they get it. They may or may not get the supporting documents because there could be an ongoing investigation at that time, is that correct?
Potentially.
This bill doesn't pertain to them getting those documents at any point.
No, sir. My understanding of the bill is that it instructs an agency to provide the policy that was violated and what that violation was, and on this form. And it wouldn't go into great detail on the investigation.
I want to make sure. Okay, thank you.
All right, no more questions for Mr. Richards. This time, thank you. At this time, we'll call up Representative Johnson to close on the bill.
Mr. Chair, thank you so much, and all members, transparency bill, all I'm trying to get to. No one should be dismissed or have no clue as to why they're being dismissed. So I think this bill simply just says, want to know what the violation is that was committed, if in fact, from any particular police force. And I think we all love transparency. That's what we talk about here on this House floor all the time. So I thank you, Mr. Chair. With that, I close.
Any questions, Representative Johnson, with being done, there's no objection, House Bill 3858, at this time. Okay, we've got a little bit of housekeeping, we're gonna vote 6 bills out real quick, and then we got, Representative,